Hey everybody, it's actually a balmy day in the beginning of April here, and Mike Gable with Pontoon Hydrofoil Applications, and we sell aluminum products, pontoon products, tri-toon products, and also power catamaran products that are shaped and built from 6061 or 6063 aluminum, okay? And using this aluminum for some of the saltwater owners, you're going to find that your hydrofoil may be underwater for the season, maybe for a couple weeks at a time, and you may find that you need to have some sort of a bottom paint. I'm here today with Tim from Pettit Paints, which happens to be a very large producer of great bottom paints for aluminum surfaces, fiberglass surfaces, wood surfaces, but in this case, Tim's going to be helping us out today with some of the aluminum preparation for people that have the question of how are we going to do this? How do we do this to our boat, right? And so some things that we want to say that that you know Tim may or may not totally know is that this airfoil winger, this hydrofoil, represents a surface that is very precise. So we don't want to take, as if we were sitting on an airplane and we're looking out at the wing, we don't want to have a brush or rolled texture to this, because what is that going to do? It's going to add more drag, right? So what we want to do is we want to come up with a sprayed application, but that sprayed application needs to be a nice, smooth application. So what Tim and I are going to do today, just kind of working together, we're not knowing exactly, listen, this isn't scripted. Tim, am I paying you?
No.
Tim, am I being paid?
No.
No. So this is all, we're just kind of ad-libbing it for you guys today to try and give you the right direction to go if your boat sits in the water, whether it's a pontoon, tri-toon, any type of a metal boat, of what direction to go, what Pettit has to offer. And if you have any questions, Tim's going to get with you and tell you how to get a hold of Pettit Paints, just to get to the professionals that are going to tell you. But here's going to be the start of a video to go. So listen, this paint here is probably about, as I read, is 93% pure zinc. So this gives us a good primer.
That's right.
And it gives us a
good primer and a good anti-fouling property.
A good anti-fouling property.
Right.
Yeah. So
at the same time.
So could we go with this paint, which is a prop coat barnacle barrier? It's gray. 1792 is the number. Could we go with this as a finished product on this finish right here?
Yep. So recommendations would be 60 to 40 grit paper, spray to prop coat, 1792 on, 2 to 3 coats, leave it alone. Don't do anything else after that. You don't have to. If you want it black, we can give you a black top coat.
So I think what Tim might be talking about is this HRT Echo. It's an anti-fouling paint. So if you don't want gray, you can go to a black. Does this give you more or less, or is it conditional wise? Like everybody in water has certain conditions, fresh water, salt water.
Definitely conditional, but what we find is if you just leave the gray, you'll get a good working product that way. If you have to have the black, we'll put that black on top. It will give you some extra anti-fouling property, but if you just leave it the gray, we find out that it works just as well just being by itself. So under the water, you don't usually see it. So. Yeah, under the water, you won't see it. Some additional things that are going to happen is that on your VARAStrut, you're going to find a hole on either side in the back end. The slots are always forward, as you may know, and then the standard holes are in the back. But we will put a hole here, it's 3/16 hole, and then you'll put the clamshell zincs on either side for any overprotection. Well, we won't call it overprotection, but for any further protection that you may need for electrolysis in saltwater environments, or if this thing's in for a long period of time. I would say a long period of time would be anything over about 4 weeks, you know. So if you're going to leave it in for 4 weeks or more, make sure we get zincs on here to help protect this, just like you would on your engine. You know, you wouldn't leave your outboard engine down in salt water without that zinc protection on there, but we generally don't like to leave that happen, right? Because it'll start attacking the parts of the engine, or in this case, it would start attacking some of the welds, okay, that are done on the actual strut. Tim, so what do you think? Okay, so anything else for directions of use? We want to be doing it outside, right? Outside, 60-40 grit paper sand on your surface.
Okay, and that's what we have here today. So we're using a dual action sander, if I can add that to you. So the dual action means it revolves, okay, meaning spins, revolves, and it rotates, okay? So at the same time, it kind of gives you a finer finish because you're doing this revolving, and then at the same time, it's got this little nut in here you can't see that forces it to be off center, so it rotates at the same time. That's what the dual action means. All right, this happens to be a variable speed. We have the speed set, but we also have the 60 grit that Tim's talking about. And the 60 grit, just for a little bit before we start making a little noise here,
Yeah.
what are we going from, say, 100 grit to a 40 grit? What is that buying the paint to get?
So
to do
what we're trying to do is when we go with 60 grit paper, we're trying to get a surface tension for the paint to hold on to. So when we do 60 or 40, we get a better bite on metal. It doesn't really polish the metal, it actually gives a bite on the metal. So when you're using the prop coat, it's got something to hang on to and usually lasts a lot longer that way.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, what Tim's trying to say about bite is, from an engineering standpoint, if you were to look at this under a microscope, the surface of the metal right now is straight, right? So what we want to do is we want to add like grooves to that so that the paint, when it sinks down in there, is grabbing onto the grooves or the bite. So
Right.
the coarser the bite generally is the
Better holding power you're going to have.
better holding power. But then you got the compromise of, okay, we don't want to start with like a 36 grit
Right.
and have a product that's not very smooth. So the compromise is getting the bite you need so that the product sticks, and then also getting something that is a finished product that will be smooth when we get done. We don't want that brush and roll finish, as we mentioned. So, so I think what we should do here is some of the directions. We got the surface preparation. We need to make sure that there's no wax on this surface before we start. Any kind of oils.
That's right.
What
Grease.
else? Grease. Your hands. You generally don't want to have greasy hands while you're working with anything, obviously. Wax, Vaseline, those type products, petroleum type products that will interfere with the bite that we're trying to get.
So wipe it down first, give it a good sand, wipe it down again, ready for your prep for your paint.
And as you're going to see, that's what we're going to do. We took a little section over here just to see what the 60 was going to do. Tim and I said, yeah, this is great. The reason why we did this, if you look at what we're testing here, is this is an anodized product. So this is a hard coat anodizing black, obviously, that's going over a 6061 T6 aluminum. So this is an extra kind of extra coating that we do for those that aren't going to go to the primer system. They're going to be in the water, you know, for a couple of hours a day or maybe a couple of days. This gives you a little bit extra protection from that, okay? But this surface can be sanded and made to prime. And then, as Tim said, if you really wanted to go with a bottom paint because this wasn't working in your area as good as it should, and
It should work anyway, but if it doesn't, you can add the black. Or if you want black, you can still add the black.
And that's because this stuff is pure zinc. So this is the stuff, but if for some reason your area just doesn't have it, we're going to this. All right, so what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to wipe this down, as Tim said. We're just going to make sure that none of my hands or his hands have put to it. Obviously, we're going to use gloves as per OSHA. I'll be using a mask to go ahead and just do the sanding on this so we're not sucking up the dust. And you just need to make sure that you're going by your local OSHA rules to keep yourself safe by doing this also. Goggles are probably a good idea. Okay, as you can see, I've got my safety glasses here. And these are too. And you know, Tim's going to be back a little bit, so he's not breathing any of the dust, so he may walk out of the picture here. This should only take us about 2 minutes to sand, so let me get to it, guys. Let me get my mask on. Tim, is there anything else you want to add?
I think you're good.
To us before I move on and make a little bit of noise here?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, we may or may not cut this section out, but in terms of, you know, how much noise it makes for how long, but by the end you'll see what we got when we finish sanding. We're only going to go to this white line for reasons you'll see down the road. All right, so if everybody's ready to go, we're going to take you always start off with the DA, obviously. I'm not giving you instructions, but never start off out here, because if you do, you're going to cut into your metal, okay? So you always put the DA down on the substrate that you're going to be sanding. Okay, obviously while I was sanding, I remembered that I was supposed to wipe this down prior to sanding. So there is two things that we
I did
can
that
do.
for you, so you're okay.
You did that, yeah.
I
But
saved you on that one. I actually did it for you.
so he had done it ahead of time,
Okay.
but you didn't see it happen. So just in case this was to happen to you, there is another test. Tell me if you like this test or not. We don't generally do it on aluminum products, but if you have to, you can come in and look with your denatured alcohol, which is what is the best product to come in and solvent wash this. And you can watch how the denatured alcohol actually moves across the surface, and you can see if there's contaminants. If you see an area that is kind of bleeds up like Swiss cheese, so to speak, if it has any kind of dots, that means that you've got some sort of contaminant in there. Do another wipe down and do another sand. Come back and try it again until you get rid of any of that, the contaminants in there. So it's the best way to keep the paint attached for the longest amount of time. Anything you want to add there?
That's good. We're going to get your rag. We'll try to do a little wipe down on it.
So we'll just do a dry wipe first.
Yep. You can blow it off, wipe it off with an air gun, then come back with your denatured alcohol. And then wipe down.
Just from a standpoint of, I've done this for quite a long time, but Tim, I mean, from a standpoint of what the public may be doing, is this good enough for them?
This is fine. The only thing you got to keep in mind when you're doing it on your own is to try to hit your edges across your front here a little bit. For this demonstration, we don't really need to find really nook and cranny, but the more you sand, the better it adheres to.
Perfect point. Very perfect point there. So appreciate that. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wipe this all down. And as we're wiping it down, you'll see this stuff dry. What we're looking for is we're looking for any contaminants that may be in here, and we don't like to see a lot of streaking. If you're getting a lot of streaking, if you notice, I'm going to go back the other direction here. If you're getting a lot of streaking, that may mean that there's dust on this, and you need to turn it over so that the streaks are out. Okay,
that looks perfect.
So you're liking that? We got one little. So I'll do a second time just for the audience, just so they can show. It's better to be real careful. And there it is, okay?
Yep.
So that's the prep work, which is really 99% of a paint job, maybe 95% of a paint job, as you all know if you do houses, cars, boats. Let's set this down here. So for our next step, that's going to be where we follow the directions that are put on the paint can. And so it tells you about your application data. That means shake this can vigorously.
Yes.
How long would you go?
I would say shake that can for at least 2 to 3 minutes to make sure that product is stirred up in there good. It's got a very heavy zinc property in there. If you don't, you stand a chance of clogging the tip. It's so powerful in there.
Yeah, so and most of the zinc goes down to the bottom.
That's
so if this is sitting on the shelf like this, most of it's down here. I do this. Is that a good idea?
That's fine. Anything that rattles the ball around will be perfect.
So you can do both systems, do it up and down. This has been shaken quite a bit prior to this, but we're just showing you that it's done both ways, up and down, until you're satisfied this thing is ready to go. So what we'll do is from there, we're going to make sure that we follow the directions, and it says apply in thin coats, okay? So that thin coat, in terms of art speaking, millage wise, what are you looking at?
I don't run the mills.
Okay, so if we don't, so on total mill is usually on primer, it's probably going to be down around between 1 to 3, all right? And I think what you're saying is what should we look for? Like when I come across this, and by the way, I'm going to come across overlapping about 60% to 40% of each overlap I do across here.
That's right.
Okay, I'll keep coming across. You'll see how it goes. But
what you want to look for is flat, smooth. You want to stay away from orangey peel look, right? Because you take away from your speed at that point.
Yep.
So, you know, when in doubt, always get a piece of something and test it yourself to see how your hand movement's going to go, right?
Good
So
point.
if you have a board or a fiberglass or a piece of metal or something, you know, go over it a couple times and see how your hand works. If your hand works good, slow, and one way, go with it. If it's a little faster, go with that. You want to stay a little bit close to the substrate. If you don't and you're too far away, it'll dry in the air before it actually hits the metal, and that's where we'll find out where it falls off the product, because there's nothing to hold on. You're holding dust to the metal, basically. So you want to be within its range.
Yeah, and that range, it's not on here, but I generally remember it's between 4 to 5, 6 inches.
6, 8 inches, you know, somewhere close. Some people say a feet, but if you're back this far, the product will dry in the air before it actually hits the metal. And what it'll cause is it'll be a failure where the paint will fall off the metal.
And it actually looks like, if this helps, it actually looks like powdered dust.
That's right.
Right?
Exactly right.
It'll have this appearance of powdered dust that's kind of sticking to each other, but it's not sticking real well.
That's right.
Okay, so, and it'll also have a little bit of a rough feel to it. So what we're going to do is, Tim's going to let me go. He's going to stand upwind over here. Once again, I'm going to be using my mask. This isn't the proper mask for this, but I'm going to keep it away from me. And I'm going to take a deep breath beforehand so you know that I'm not breathing it behind here and saying that I'm some stupid guy. All right, so here we go. Probably what I'm going to do is just remove, before we do this, I'm going to remove this strut system because we wanted to show you this actually in there. This is a plug and play system. It's there. You can do the same prep work up to where you need here. And that's generally the same water line that you would have on your pontoon. You would just transfer it to this, do all the same prep work, and it wouldn't change one bit what we just said about the prep work just on the hydrofoil here. So it's not just the hydrofoil, it's the struts up to the point and past the point where the water or the salt water is going to be touching the metal, okay?
Yep.
All right, so that's it. I'll hand that to you, Tim, if you're okay. Thank you. All right, now what Tim mentioned is very, very important, but you're trying to feel that. So we're going to start out with the wind that we have or whatever conditions you might have where you're at. You obviously don't want to be blowing in 30 to 40 knots of wind, okay? Or if you're in a hallway where the wind is funneling down, you don't want to be doing that. But we're out in an area where it's decently blowing. We got a front coming we know about. So you feel this out, okay? And as Tim said, you can start down on the area that's below your actual substrate just to see what you're getting there, okay? And that's what I'm going to do here. So right there, first two were good. You can't see it, but the second two had a little bit of orange peel. So I was a tad too close and possibly not fast enough. So here we go. So you can see, maybe you can't, that we're getting some puffs of wind in there that are affecting how this paint is going on. So this is actually a very good way for you to see it. Back here, I put in, because I wasn't going fast enough and starting out, I put in a little bit of orange peel. Tim, maybe you can come back in and just talk about this and how, you know, it affects the future of the paint. Like, how does it, that job?
To try to be fast, if that bothers you, you can come back with a Scotch-Brite pad in about 40 minutes or so, depending on the weather, maybe an hour, and you could Scotch-Brite pad that down again, wipe it off again, and go again, if you want it off. I don't think what you have here will actually affect anything, you know.
So the surface is a pretty good surface, right? We can tilt this up to you.
Yeah.
The surface is a pretty good surface, but you may be able to see in this picture just this little bit of an orange peel line here. I think what Tim's talking about up here probably looks a lot better, right?
Yeah.
You know, once we dial in that sweet spot. So maybe take a little less time than I did. I've been doing this for 35 to 40 years. Okay, so we just don't want you to have a product that's starting out bad. Just try it the best you can. The dry times on this, application temperature, this is very important. If you're up in a northern area, you don't want to be applying this in less than 50 degrees of temperature. And because that could also affect the paint and how it's, you know, working, and not only working, but spraying, okay? It could be thicker, okay? So 50 to 80 degrees is what they're talking about. Sorry, 50 to 90 degrees. Relative humidity, lower than 85%. And product can be handled in 1 to 2 hours and is fully dry within 24 hours at 70 degrees. So that's it. Everything's right here for you. It's just a matter of practicing. You can see that this forward area here now is dry to the touch. Even the back end is dry to the touch, but that area that I showed you, you can tell it's still a little bit more orange peely because, or I'm sorry, it's not dry because it's a little bit more orange peely. It is very, very close, okay? So ideally, we want to have, ideally, Tim's coughing because of the,
I'm dying with the allergy.
he's got allergies here, and we got a big oak tree right over here. Anyhow, in trying to talk for him, what we're trying to do is get 2 coats minimum on this, possibly 3. The more that you have, the more coats that you have, the longer the protection lasts for your season. If you only got a 2-month season, possibly two coats is enough, right? But the coverage of this, if I remember, is 12 square feet, okay? So with a average hydrofoil being about 48 to 52 inches wide by 9 inches this way, you can add up how many cans you'll need just by doing that, okay? And we're not going to do the underside. The reason why is if we do the underside, it's just going to, as we sit it down, it's just going to look like a mess. If you ever do this, you kind of want to set it up on things like this for one end so that you can do the bottom first and then do the top. Or what's nice about the strut system, when you turn the whole hydrofoil over, it's like a table, if you can picture the 2 bottom V's that we showed you. Okay, so you can spray this side very easily and then turn this side and hang it from the strut holes on a clothesline or something of that sort. All right, so I don't think, let's go ahead. We're going to do a second coat if you're okay.
Yeah, you can do a second coat when it's around 90 degrees outside, like it is here in Florida. You can put a second coat on in a half hour, so you can do it fast.
So you can do it the way you're saying here, like right there.
You can do it quick.
Okay.
And you can even launch it just as quick almost. Because
really?
It dries really fast.
It's that fast. Okay.
You want to give it at least 3 or 4 hours, but you could launch it quick.
Okay. So these are all good words, as we said. If you ever have any questions on this, get a hold of Pettit. They're going to get you to the right person involved. Tim happens to be involved with the Florida area down here. So we've known each other for just a little bit of time through that. And thank you for helping us out here. What I'm going to do is apply a second coat for you right now.
And try to, when you're doing it, kind of overlap it a little bit. You can cross-check it if you want. That's fine.
Okay.
But try to overlap. So you get a spray. You want to overlap your spray into the spray on the edge, just a hair. It'll make it all smoother.
Yeah, you want to, in other words, what he's saying is the first one's going to go across like this, second one's going to go across like this, and it's kind of laddering effect all the way up.
Exactly right.
I was trying to do that, I just wasn't getting the distance right. This is not something that I do every day, I'll say that. Now what Tim was saying, can you say that word again?
Crosshatch.
It's called crosshatching, okay?
Yep.
So there's a lot of times when it's so windy that you can't get a steady paint, okay? Maybe I'm making it look easier, or maybe I'm making it look harder. But cross hatching is when you go across, I'm going to let you step away, is when you shake your can and you're ready to go. It's when you come across from the other direction, like that's way too much. And you can see the wind is affecting this.
The wind is affecting you mostly.
The wind is affecting this very, very much, okay? But I'm about, I don't know, it looks to be about 6 inches. And this is where the cross hatching to me really works. I'm going to keep it going all one time and see if I do a better job that way. I don't really think that was a professional job.
It'll dry fine.
Okay? So if you look at it though, from a positive standpoint, we're not getting the dry look.
That's right.
Like if you feel, actually let's show that. Why don't you show what you...
That's how fast it's already dried.
So if you're getting this, you hold on to that one. If you're getting this dried look, like see this? If you're getting that powdered look, that's not so good, okay? What you're looking for is the smooth, it's a slower to dry, it's a slower to dry look. In other words, it's not dry right away. Is that the best way to
not dry all the way, and I can spray a little bit too.
So
I don't have my mask, it's okay.
You want to
I'll be fast. No, I'm fine.
Okay, hold your breath.
Yeah.
And he's going to show, you want to wait till that dries over, or you're going to just go for
Well, for demonstration purposes.
Okay.
So I like to play a little bit like this too, to get my angle feel, and then I'll come across like this, come back, and then get into the next one, and into the next one like that. And I like to go a little faster, just because back in my day I used to paint cars, and a little bit more faster on the speed that way. A little difficult with the wind, but
It is a little, it's definitely.
but you can tell it all was wet.
So that is, while we get back in the picture here, that is 3 total coats. If we were to do that in real time, what would
You're looking
you
at
look
about an hour and a half.
Okay, so you can't just knock it out like
At
we're
90
doing.
degrees. If you're at 70, you know you'll double. You'll double.
Now, while we're at this point, if you have any cleanup to do, you can do it with a thinner that they have. I think it's a 121. Are you using
120.
the one? Okay, so they're using the 121, the 120 brushing thinner. The 120 is a general Petit spraying thinner.
Spraying thinner would be 121. Brushing thinner would be 120.
Okay, so
And cleanup. This would be 120.
So this is the 120 brushing thinner is what they say, any cleanup. So if you get this on anything that you don't want it on, your hands, whatever, generally try and clean your hands with soap and water first. Try and get off what you can with a non-solvent type.
Well, hopefully you got
base.
gloves on. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So you don't really want to clean your hand with solvent as much as possible, but if it gets down to something's got to get clean, you know the solvent to use for cleanup.
That's right.
Number of coats, we've done the 2 to 3, so you can see that we've completed the directions as far as the number of coats. We told you the application temperature and humidity and the dry times we pushed.
At this point, you're done. So unless you want to put a top coat on for extra anti-fouling properties, you would be done until tomorrow. You would come back, you would Scotch Brite pad this with a Scotch Brite and put 2 coats of this on top, and you'd be done doing the same system.
So when I think this is done, so for paint wise, you're done, okay? But for any type of an orange peel that really, with this product, I tell you, it's really hard to see any kind of orange peel. It really,
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It really is good. It does a nice job. It sprays easy. But for any kind of orange peel, don't freak out. What you can do is you can take let me take this mask off. You can take a grit, like say a 400, maybe a 600 grit, and just come across the tops of this using a block or a soft pad.
If you want that extra.
If you want that extra, just oomph, go fast, and the water sticks to this and causes what we named laminar flow. Some people believe laminar flow is faster than sublaminar flow. I happen to live in that school of laminar flow is faster than sublaminar flow. So that's what I recommend from there. Same thing as if you go to the second coat that you mentioned.
That's right.
Of the bottom paint. We just want to make sure that the finished product of this, which if you look at it right now, is much better than any kind of brush or roller that we could take to this. But if you finish it off with say 600.
You could 600 at the very end if you want to.
Yeah,
if it's that much, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll affect anything, to be honest with you.
Listen, you want to go a tenth faster. So that's really it. So I'll tell you what, why don't you, if you're okay with this, can you take this, since you spray
your next one?
better than mine. I'll let you, I'll step to the side. And all right, everybody, you can see Tim's here, volunteered. We're going to spray way ahead of time, obviously. Stay in your windows, okay? We can't enforce that, or not enforce it, but we can't tell you that too many times. Stay in your paint windows that the paint recommendations are on, they're clearly written on the back.
Wait till next day. Scotch Brite pad, put this on top.
Right, and after you Scotch Brite pad, don't forget, and no, I may be wrong here, but do they Scotch Brite pad or lightly sand or whatever it's going to be, do they put any solvent or anything on there?
Denature alcohol, wipe the dust off.
Okay, so don't forget to get that salt, alcohol is not a solvent. It's a, shoot, I forget what it's called. It's not even a thinner, is it? Anyhow, alcohol, denatured alcohol is what the manufacturer likes to see you use to to do any work after you sand. Okay. So with that said, Tim's
so I'm
going
come
to
around front and hit this edge because you want to make sure you get the edge. I do like to try, you know, to see how the paint comes out. So if I go too slow, does it drip? Does it orange peel? You know, it appears that this one likes to go fast.
Yeah, it sure does.
So I like to come around and just hit this corner because you only want to do half, right?
Yeah. Let's do
So
half.
I kind of hit it like that. And then I come back. Under normal circumstances, we would have sanded this before, so it's going to look funny because we didn't, you know, we didn't Scotch-Brite pad it, so it could actually check, but I don't think it's going to. And so that would be one coat.
So one thing we could see is, number one, he did a perfect job, right? But number two, that you could see as you add more layers of paint, you could definitely see a little bit more of what we call orange peel.
That's right.
This would be like lemon peel because it's so small, but it starts to build up these little craters, and you'll understand what it means after you spray it, but that's when you have to make the choice, is it better for me to do a light sand or not? When we designed the hydrofoil and we designed the plug and play struts, I'm going to take my mask off, you probably can too if you want, but when we designed the struts, this is obviously backwards, but they plug in backwards. When we design the struts as plug and play struts for you, okay, we design them such that they're CNC down here where the water is going, where the water is hitting the strut most, so that it kind of cuts its way forward. So if we go ahead and we add orange peel, we're actually increasing our drag coefficient. In general terms, from a hydrofoiling equation standpoint, if your lift goes up 30%, your drag will generally follow. In other words, the lift and drag curve is generally the same. So what do we want to do as designers? We want to cut down on the drag, but increase the lift. That means we're more efficient for going through the water and creating more lift so that we go through the water faster. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's one coat. I don't think we need to spray another coat, do you?
We don't for, you know, you would want to put second on, you know, but for this, one coat's fine.
Okay.
Demonstrations.
So you heard that straight from the horse's mouth. Okay, so from what I said, because we're probably not going, we may or may not cut this film. This is just ad lib. Is there anything that you could say to somebody, number one, in terms of any other paints that you offer? I'll tell you what, I will say something.
Okay.
So Tim brought this Petit epoxy. It's a flex epoxy. I'm going to tell you one thing, this stuff is extremely good. Where we use this every once in a while, we have customers that want to come in and where the strut, actually, if you can, put the strut all the way against, we make a cutout here. Okay, the cutouts are custom made and they are, I mean, they're generally never exact. When I say exact, 100%. So what we do is we plug this into an actual paint, what do you call it? A caulking gun. Yeah. We plug this into a caulking gun, put this mixer on, it mixes the catalyst and the base together at the same amount that you need, and you can put it on the shelf under his recommendations. Right. They have a cap that you can go on, and it has a shelf life to it, so you're not ruining an entire tube. But you can get this at, say, West Marine, any
of your local retailers, online.
Any local marine distributor, yeah. So, but this, when you plug this in, allows you to actually pull a finger radius and make it nice and clean to go through the water to where water isn't gargling or forming what we call an eddy, okay? Especially at your trailing edges. Trailing edges, meaning the back edges of any object going through the water, those are that's where eddies are formed. You may have seen planes that are landing in slightly cloudy weather, and if you've actually seen them land, the tips of the actual airplane wing will form circles, okay? And those eddies are usually taken out by either end plates, or we want to make sure that we make them as fair as we can. When I say fair, I mean as in line as we can with any type of material that would be made for underwater, strong
That's right.
and would last. Because generally, once you put this item together, unless you were to damage it, God forbid, we've had one, maybe two come back. We had a fella come in, he ran over a crab pot. Well, it's actually larger than a crab pot. This was a big orange ball, had two stainless chains hanging from it, and at the end of those two stainless chains were two concrete blocks. So he came into this and it acted like a sawing effect, and he didn't go long enough to cut through the foil or do any damage because it's pretty thick. This is actually about 0.13 aluminum, maybe a tad more, but and the back edge of it is about 1.5 inches of solid metal. But he wore through the front a little bit where he needed epoxy, and so we just sanded that, you know, where the wear marks were. We taped off around it. We solvent bathed it so the epoxy would adhere, and we put epoxy up there, sanded that straight, and then he never knew that, or the water never knew there was a gouge or something, that some damage was there. So it allowed him to get full efficiency out of his foil. This is extremely good putty to do that. Okay, do you know offhand what the dry times are on this stuff?
That goes by your weather. We always put our dry times on the back.
Okay, so
if it's at 90 degrees, it's X, 80 degrees, it's X. You know, overnight generally when things cure together.
Correct. And
that's a curing product. So.
Generally, epoxies have a 7-day gestation period, meaning they'll go for 7 days to get hard. And each day, incrementally, it gets less percentage. But generally it's 7 days. So you can imagine this product after 7 days is probably pretty hard. So we probably recommend to go ahead and try and sand it the next day before it gets too hard, right? What else did I want to say about this product? I mean, it says that you can actually drill this and tap this stuff. So that's how strong it is. I've used this once before, and I've got good things to say about it. So in terms of that, is there anything else that you may want to
That's all you would need to do. If you, like I said, if you got any questions, just go to our website at www.petitpaint.com. We've got 800 numbers you can call us on in there, or you can email us a question and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
All right, thanks, Tim. Listen, we want to thank everybody for watching. What we want to do is just, we have a lot of people asking, okay, how and what can I do to my saltwater boat? It stays in for a season and I get algae growth, I get barnacle growth, get whatever type of growth they have. Now you have an answer. It's an easy answer. So hopefully we showed you all the steps. If there's any questions of anything that we may have said, get a hold of petitpaints.com. You can also go to VARAFoil.com and we can put you in connection with Petit Paints. Yep. But either way, we want to make sure that you put a product on there that's as fast as it can go, as efficient as it go, so that you can have the best hydrofoiling experience out there. And that's part of joining the VARALife. So welcome to the VARALife if you've already bought one. Thank you to Petit Paints for helping us out. And Tim, thank you for coming. Thanks, and we'll talk to you all soon.